Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fantastic episode of the Roots of Life podcast. I am one of your hosts, Taylor, and I am joined today by the one and only Jimmy.
Yeah, what's up? How's it
Good,
going?
man. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. Just woke up actually.
Damn, you slept in a little bit today.
Yeah, I was up for like 30 plus hours, so I figured I could sleep in a bit.
Woo! Damn, dude. What were you doing up for so long?
Well, I had an overnight shift and then I came home and I wasn't tired, so I just stayed up for the whole day.
You know, they say it's bad for your health to stay up that late.
Yeah, but when you're not tired, I don't know. I was doing stuff. I was doing stuff around the house, so got some stuff done.
Yeah, you got to get stuff done, right? When the time hits, when the inspiration's there, you got to capitalize on it. You know, you got to make it
Exactly.
happen. So,
Yeah.
cool, man. Well, that's awesome. I'm happy that you were able to take the time out of your day to join me on what will be another adventure for the Roots of Life and for all of the listeners joining us.
Yeah, man. I'm so stoked. We already tried to record this one, and it didn't go so well. We didn't really like it, so I'm excited to try again, get this one going.
Yeah. Sometimes, just like in any creative medium, you hit blocks sometimes. We started getting into it and, it just wasn't working for us. And so we decided that we were going to take a little break, find our inspiration again, come back to it, readdress everything. And it was going to come back and it's going to be better. It's going to be better content. So, yeah. Jimmy, why don't you start it off? Tell everybody or give a little overhead here of what we are going to be talking about today.
So we decided, looking through our podcast topics that we have written down, that we're going to talk about relationships today. Now, we thought this was a good idea because both of us, we're in relationships, and the two of us have been friends for a number of years. It's about 13 years now, I think, if you go back. So we decided we'll just do a quick overview of relationships. We want to talk about healthy relationships, different types of relationships and where they go, how they work. Not necessarily just romantic relationships though, like business relationships, friendships, even acquaintances, that's a relationship. So we just thought it would be a good idea to touch on these kind of things. And as this is a big part of everyone's life, so you don't always just want to have the creative side. You want to have that whole being as well. So I thought it'd be a good thing to talk about. Do you have anywhere you'd like to start?
I do. I actually had an idea today for how we could kind of progress talking about different relationships. Now, I wanted to start from the very beginning. I want to work our way almost chronologically, not necessarily relevant to us, but to people in general. The relationships that we start building from our infant years,
Okay.
working up towards the environment that you put yourself into as you get into your primary years and then your intermediate years and then into your years as a young adult. And so as the relationships change, as the dynamic in your life changes, I want to address those relationships kind of in that way.
Okay.
So who's the very first relationship that you'll ever develop? Who's that person, Jimmy?
Well, your mother.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in a relationship with your mother 9 months before you're even out of the womb kind of thing. So
she's a special lady in your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously, we don't need to get into the science of pregnancy and everything like that. That's
a whole nother episode.
That's for another day. But I think it's important to know about how that first relationship that you ever develop with any person, before you're even aware or conscious of it, how that can affect all the relationships that you have for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I think we mentioned in the bonus episode that we did. If you'd like to see it, you can go to our Patreon page. And It is only for people that have donated. Patrons is what they call it. So it's only $1, and then you can see this extra content. We had talked about it a little bit there. The idea of nature and nurture, where growing up you become a certain person based upon the way you've been brought up, the interactions that you've had through your infant, child, and then young adult life, and the interplay between the nurturing aspect of like how you're treated and what you're taught, as well as the nature aspect is like how you naturally react to things. You're basically your temperament.
I think it's really important to point out that as a parent, you have to know that, you have a big impact on your relationship with your child is a very important one that will help shape the relationships that they have moving forward for the rest of their lives. And so, and that's everything from like the energy to the that you exhibit in the household and what they see on a daily basis. Now, you may not think that they recognize a lot of it or that they understand, but they do, because a child's brain develops, it's something around 80 or 90% from the time they're born till they're about 3 years old. And so their brain does so much development in that time. And maybe they can't understand the words or they don't know exactly what the word means, but they understand the tone in which they get said. So everything that you do has an effect on your child and the relationships that they have, moving forward. So it's important to just be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you also, it's important to make sure you have those interactions with your child and not just plop them in front of a TV, because if they don't understand, if they don't have those interactions with you as a parent, then they never developed a relationship with you necessarily, or not to the extent that some might hope. And then they have a harder time developing relationships with other people.
They don't have that emotional intelligence is basically it. They're not able to see how their emotions reflect on other people, and they can't necessarily see how other people's emotions are reflecting upon them, and the difference in perception between the two. When you don't have that basic parental relationship. I know there's like lots of troubles when kids have parents that aren't around, or parents that work too much, or have all these different things. Those are like the risk factors for later on in life when things can go wrong.
And usually when those problems develop, the person, like if I say my parents weren't around, I would then reflect that in my later relationships, especially romantic ones. I think is huge, because if your parents aren't around, you aren't shown how to show that emotion or how to share your feelings, then you don't know how to show those to your better half. And when you're in a romantic relationship, you always have to take into consideration the other person's needs and desires, because ultimately that's what's going to keep that person happy and healthy. And if you can't do that, then it's not going to be a healthy relationship. And usually, those things only last for so long. There's healthy relationships and there's toxic ones. Before we go into the romantic side of things, so we have these relationships with our parents, and obviously there's other people that we have relationships with at such a young age, say a lot of times grandparents, or our close friends, maybe aunts and uncles. And then from there, when you expand and you get into your primary years, who would be some of the next people that you would think would be important relationships that you would encounter?
So I think the most important ones become to teachers as well as your peers. So you learn a lot from teachers, especially if they're those teachers that are inspiring and get you to think about things. We talked about that back in episode 10. And then peers. Peers are really big. Those are the people that you meet and you're like, oh man, you have way different ideas than my parents, and you're my age, so this is awesome. Let's go break that thing. That's cool. You get those troublemaker friends. You get those friends that don't ever do anything wrong in their life. you just have all these different people that are all your age and have the same like mental capacities as you, and you can all like agree on one thing, that your parents suck because it's difficult. Yeah, so it's a giant group of people that you learn all these different things from. You always have people saying things to you, and these relationships grow where you have people that are nice, people that aren't nice, and it just like pushes the idea forward for you that not everyone is going to always be nice to you like your parents were. I think one of the biggest things when you're young and you learn like, oh, when I draw a picture, not everybody's going to think that's awesome. Some of these kids are going to make fun of me for it, and that's where a lot of that emotional intelligence is important, because if you don't have that from when you're dealing with parents and you get to that age, it's really difficult to adjust to the fact that not everyone is going to always be on your team.
Yeah, that's having that sense of self,
Yeah.
and I think that's becoming an ongoing issue in this day and age with millennials and social media. And it's constantly said that you can have anything you want. Like, if you do this and you do that, the world is yours. You can take it.
And those goddamn participation ribbons.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you got 32nd place,
Here's a ribbon.
but good job. You get a ribbon for participation.
No, you got 32nd. You suck. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
pretty
You
much.
didn't do very well.
Swim harder.
Yeah. Go back and practice. You can make it if you try harder. I'm probably.
Do better. And maybe it's
do
not
better.
your thing. Maybe you need to try something else.
Yeah. Giving these kids ribbons for these kind of things. It's like, hey, no, you'll make it, but not everybody makes it. It's just a fact. It sucks, but sometimes
That's life.
You got to give them the idea that, no, this one's not for you. Try something new. Or push them to practice more and get better at it. Not just, you did okay. You did good. They didn't.
I think that's you may not realize it as a kid, but those are some of the most important relationships, are to surround yourself with people who make you want to do better. Friends who encourage you to try new things and push the envelope, as opposed to putting you down when you want to try something. A lot of that comes down to the stereotypes and scrutiny that, one person's father might say like, oh, that's too girlish, or like, you shouldn't do that. And then that kid then comes and projects that onto you when you want to do something that might not necessarily be looked at as something that your gender usually does within like the typical society norm, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
So I think that was something that I was very grateful and I benefited from specifically, was I always had people around me who were encouraging to me, especially some of my really close friends, because I was definitely one of those kids where I didn't have a ton of friends, but I had the tight circle of super good quality friends that were always there for me. And, even like you said, like to this day, like, we've known each other for say almost 15 years or whatever. And I always count John as one of my good friends who I've been really good friends with since I was 4 or 5. And, both you guys, amongst others, I continue to talk to this day. So I think it's a huge thing to have those concrete relationships that are gonna, just people that'll be there for you and will encourage you to try new things. And, people are usually scared when you tell them you want to do something, and it's usually something they want to do, but they're too scared to do it. They want to tell you that you can't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And what do we say to people like that, Jimmy?
Not today.
Not today. That's right.
I've actually been reading this book. I don't want to explain what it's about yet, simply because of something they said in the book about making declarations to the world. It's okay to make declarations to like a tight circle where those people they'll push you to do better, be positive, that kind of thing.
They'll hold you accountable.
Yeah, they'll hold you accountable. But in making that big declaration to the world, a lot of people think, well, I've told everyone this. And I know this is definitely a thought process that I've had, and I've done this exact thing. I've told everyone that I'm going to do this. So I'm going to hold myself accountable for what I've said I'm going to do. And I'm going to get it done basically through guilt of saying that's what I said I was going to do, so I have to do it now. So I'm going to try not to make a big declaration, but it is one of those goals that I have set for this year that I want to have completed by the end of the year. But in this book, what I was reading is that it's good to have that tight circle, and to make declarations to them like, this is something I want to try, and get those people to push you and do those good things. And it's important to choose those friends wisely, because not all your friends are going to be that positive person, or have, even if it's just about that one thing, they're not necessarily going to think that's a good idea for you or whatever. But it's good to have friends that can express their ideas and their thoughts about the thing in a positive and productive way. So not just calling you down, saying, oh, you can't do that, you'll never make it. If they don't think that it's a good fit for you, maybe it's a good thing for them to say something, but not in a negative way.
That's so interesting that you've been reading that, because I actually just had a conversation with my teacher a week or so ago, and it was about something so similar. He has all these really cool ideas and always drops these like philosophy bombs on us.
Oh
And
man, I love those.
yeah, they're always like, your jaw drops in awe and you're like, wow, you're so smart.
You have a small existential crisis for the rest of the day. Kind of like, oh man, I never thought about that. I gotta rethink my whole life just about that.
And so that was exactly what he had told us. He was like, tell people this stuff. He even said, as far as like, put it on social media, post it on there. I'm doing this. Because as artists and as musicians, it's like, basically you said, it's like you'll get it done out of a fear of looking like an idiot.
Yeah.
If you don't accomplish it, which I was almost, no man, like I couldn't do that. Like that's not in my capabilities.
I think it
and
gives
in my
like
power.
it almost gives a bit too much pressure for the thing.
Yeah,
Like,
and I think
oh,
I would crack
be...
under that kind of pressure.
Yeah.
I think that's
I know,
unsettling for
I know
me.
that's something that I've done so time and time again. Especially when I was in school, I'd go up to like a group of friends that I was sitting with and be like, okay, by the end of the day, I'm gonna have these 3 assignments done. Like obviously shooting for goals that are like way too far, because I'm terrible at picking goals. But I would sit there and I would work as hard as I could to try and get those things done by the end of the day, because I was like, oh, I just told all these people. But then I also know there's other days where I'd be like telling different people that I'd come up with like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna go do this. So all the same thing. I get there, sit on my phone for 3 hours, and I'm like, oh, I have to go to class again, and I never got anything done. And I mean, it doesn't happen every time where I've been telling everybody and then I don't get anything done, or I've just told a couple people and then I do get things done. It's a mix where there either time I'll be getting something done or not. But I see the point where giving that huge declaration, it creates too much pressure in a way, where you're like, oh, I have all this stuff to do, and then your brain kind of just like shuts off because there's too many thoughts happening that are saying these are all the things that could go wrong, when in reality, all you have to think about is, what do I have to get done?
Well, I think there's a fine balance
Yeah.
between shooting for the stars and setting realistic goals for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said before, it is very important to have that quality set of friends that you can rely on to back you up, but then also kind of crack down on you when it needs to happen. When my class was having that conversation with my teacher, he said, post on social media. And a lot of us were like, well, I don't think so. And then he was like, okay, well, there's 15 of you here. You're all trying to do the exact same thing. You're all in a Facebook group on Facebook, I guess.
Yeah.
And he was like, tell it to each other. He was like, you're all doing something right now. You're trying to better yourselves by being here and push your careers forward. So why can't you rely on each other?
I like that.
That is one of the groups that, it was like, okay, still a group of people that, I don't necessarily know everybody in that class. I don't know them super well, but just the idea that everybody's there with the same intent gives you an incentive to share your ideas with them and, and just see and just rely on each other a little bit. But I would also like to try experimenting with this, maybe with you, and maybe if
Okay.
we can find some other of our close friends to kind of get in
Hmm.
on it, because then maybe we can just
Create like
even,
a little Facebook group kind of thing for it.
yeah, just kind of push ourselves forward even harder
Yeah,
and
I like
just
that.
encourage each other, because I know I could always use encouragement and inspiration.
Oh, I need it. I need encouragement, inspiration. I need to tell people things because if I don't, then I'm not necessarily thinking about the things that I need to get done. A lot of my thought processes, they're not always very clear until I've stated it, and then I'm like, okay, that's what I was thinking. That makes sense. Sometimes when I stated it, it gets even more muddled, but a lot of the time I'll be thinking like, okay, I need to get this done. And I'll say that to somebody and it makes it more concrete to me. Like, okay, that's an actual goal. They didn't react in a crazy way like, whoa, you're gonna go slay a dragon. It's a little difficult. They're like, okay, yeah, you can go do that. That's something I think you're able to do. And I like that. I like having that basically like that backboard you can bounce something off of.
Totally. I always relate it to the start of the podcast and getting here. Like,
Yeah.
it, we had to bounce these things off of each other because we ran into this issue. Okay, well, how do we solve that?
Yeah.
And instead of sitting there in our own head being like, well, I don't know, I'll figure it out, I can do it tomorrow. The point is, tomorrow never comes.
No.
That's procrastination, resistance at its finest. And sometimes you have to meet resistance with resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do make that decision, you'll push through and you'll break past that wall eventually. And guaranteed you're going to be met with more resistance. But if you just keep working at it, it gets easier and easier. So, yeah, that's, I guess, something if you're getting stuck and you need to find a way to kind of break through and make a move in life, make some like palatable changes, then maybe find some people, some of your close friends to confide in, because I think it's known when it comes to relationships and it comes to your friendships and the people that you surround yourself with, it's all about quality over quantity.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, definitely. And you got to make sure those friends, they're not like a hindrance to your life. You want those personal relationships to be something positive, to be something that pushes you forwards. You don't want those friends they don't want to do anything for themselves. They don't want to go anywhere. They don't even want to see you go anywhere, because that would mean that you might not be around for them anymore. You want people that they're excited for you when you're going on new adventures, doing new things. You want those people that want to push you forwards and they want to be pushed forwards. You want those healthy relationships with between two people. You don't want anything detrimental or toxic.
If Jimmy came up to me one day and was like, I want to do this, I would be like, okay, well, how can we do it? Like, I'll help you do this, but what do we need to research? What information do we need to gather so that we can accomplish this? As opposed to being, okay, best of luck.
Yeah.
Have fun with that.
I mean, when
right?
it came up to the podcast and everything, you were like, what do you think about doing a podcast? I said, that sounds awesome. I've always wanted to do that. And then it was both of us jumping on the computer, looking for things on how to get it done. I mean, Taylor does a lot of the edit. He does all the editing and a lot of work with the social media. Honestly, there's half the time I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't even know if I do a lot for this besides talk. But I've been working on the website, the blog, and things like that, trying to give as much as I can to this project. So I like the idea that we both work towards it. It's not just one of us sitting there like, yeah, just give me a call when you want to talk on Skype kind of thing. So I feel like it's a good relationship. We both want things to get done. We both want to see it done. And we both don't expect the other one to necessarily just have it done. I mean, today I slept in, so Taylor's right on it. He jumped on and posted an episode, which is usually what I would be doing on Friday morning. So I woke up and I was like, oh, it was posted. Awesome, because I'm late. So I was really excited. I was like, thanks, man. He's like, no worries. Got it figured. Done.
Didn't know how to do it at the time, but I figured it out.
Yeah.
Because it's something I've never done before, making sure, but So it's about having that support. And then,
Hmm.
even though sometimes that support may fail, then, you have to be there and ready to work for yourself.
Yeah,
Nobody's going to work for you.
exactly.
People will get sick of carrying your lazy ass along. So get your feet underneath you, get them planted, and get ready for a day's work.
Yeah, get your shit done.
So, talking about the blog, I don't know if
Hmm.
we've mentioned it yet, but we did launch our website recently, rootsoflifepodcast.com. There are blog posts on the website
Hmm.
that are in direct reference to the episodes, and they go a little bit more in depth, and they show some links to some of the stuff that we talk about. There's a couple of them up already dating back to a couple of the first episodes.
Yeah, episode 1 and 2 are up, and I'm partway through episode 3 right now.
Yeah, so we're slowly working on getting those caught up. So if you have listened to every Roots of Life podcast episode, like you probably should have, then there's some more research there, and you can go back and find out a little bit more about it.
And hey, if you check the facts, you're like, you guys are wrong. Let us know. I don't like being wrong. I want to know if I'm wrong. I want to be able to correct those mistakes. So that's a good idea.
Yeah, totally. So just wanted to throw that out there. Moving forward,
Yeah.
we are now out of our primitive years. We have some concrete friends, and we're moving on
Sorry,
to
I
high
was just thinking
school.
primitive years. And I just got these vision of these tiny little cavemen children.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
No, I
just
meant like
thought it was
primary, elementary
yeah. No, that's
school.
fair. I
Yeah.
was just thinking like
I don't
these
know if
little
that
kids
works
going,
in context, actually.
kind of
but
like recess with the kindergartens. The little
if you
tribe.
think about it, when you are a kid, you are almost in the most primitive
Yeah.
state that you will ever be in,
Basically,
right?
like a little chimpanzee.
Yeah, totally. You just literally want to climb on monkey bars, climb over
Yeah.
desks, and climb up on. You see that video? There was a kid climbing a dresser, and the dresser tipped over.
No.
Yeah, I think it happened somewhere in BC, and twin brothers, young,
Yeah.
were climbing on some dressers, and the dresser tipped over, and then the other brother managed, like being a year old or something, managed to lift up the dresser and save his brother
What?
who was stuck underneath it. Yeah. I don't know if they were a year or 2 years, but they were infants. Like they
Yeah,
were
they were
small.
just tiny. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's amazing what the body can do
Yeah.
when it has to. I don't even know. Does your body can you produce like adrenaline when you're that young?
Oh yeah. Yeah. You have the
It can?
yeah. All those systems are kind of in place at that point.
Oh, that's crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah. So cool. It was so interesting.
Yeah.
But I think the parents were pretty choked.
No doubt.
And I think after that they went to some extreme measures of putting locks on all the dressers so that they couldn't tip over.
Yeah, I was a
And
little afraid of where that story was going to go.
I don't think there was any extreme damage to the child's health or anything.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
an
it was
awesome
pretty
story. I love that.
pretty cool. So high
Mhm.
school now, Jimmy.
Mhm.
People are crazy. Hormones are kicking in.
Crazy.
You've left
Yeah.
the sanctuary, the safe place that was your primary school.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some of your friends have left. You're feeling abandoned. Where do you turn? How do you develop those relationships? What do you do in that
Man.
situation?
I think high school is kind of like a black hole. It sucks everybody into the drama and craziness of the hormones that are pumping through all of these kids' veins. They don't even know what's going on, especially today with like the social media aspect. Everybody knows everything about everyone, and they're all just doing these crazy things to try and impress each other and be better than the other one, when really none of these things are going to do anything for them, with just like jumping off roofs and crazy stuff like that. And I mean, that's where I think like the peers really come into play. You're moving farther away from parents. Starting to think everybody that's older than you is kind of not really all there. Kind of dumb. Kind of has some stupid ideas or something. Because you get entitled, you get that ego kind of coming in. That's where it's like, man, I'm awesome. These people that I hang out with all the time, they're awesome because they're in my in group. Everyone else kind of sucks because I don't really care to learn anything about them.
Well, that's how it is, right? You have your tribe, and then you kind of have your inner circle, and then you've got the yeah, like your more acquaintances, and then you've got the outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying outsiders like you don't fit in or anything. I'm saying you are an outsider to my world.
Yeah.
So all the like my tribe are the people that I confide in. They know about me. They know who I am. They know what I do. Then you've got your friends, which are people that you probably talk to a little more often. You always want to have, if you can, right, you have to realize that you can't expand that inner circle too much because you'll spread yourself thin, but you want to try and maintain those healthy relationships. I know it's hard in high school though, man. People are crazy, and everybody has
some crazy
different
stuff goes
agendas
on.
at that point, and it's a dog eat dog world. Throw all these
Mm-hmm.
growing people into a building and let them hang out together for 6 to 8 hours a day, and let them
Those
just
egomaniacs.
eat each other alive.
Yeah, the adolescent development. There's not very much prefrontal cortex thoughts going on, which is like, hey, you shouldn't do that. So all of these individuals have their thoughts like, these are awesome ideas, and we're not going to listen to anyone older than us tell us what to do. So we're going to do all these cool things that we want to do, and nobody else around us has their prefrontal cortex developed enough to think, hey, that's a bad idea for your
Well,
future.
I think that's why, like you said, you grow farther away from your parents, and I think some people even go as far as pushing their parents away at that point, because
Yeah.
I just picture the average teenager yelling and fighting with their parents, like, you don't understand me, you don't get it, and then all of a sudden it's because as soon as somebody starts yelling, they just want to be right at that point. There's no logical side of their brain thinking at that point. They're flooded with emotion, and once your brain is flooded, you can't rationalize. So, and
Yeah.
like you said, there's no filter there. There's nothing happening at that point until, as the years go on, your body kind of simmers down and is like, well, I'm a little more grown. I get it a little bit better, and then you can start to develop that prefrontal cortex.
And I think in this age is where we start to develop those early romantic relationships as well. So we get into those relationships where they're simply for maybe just for pleasure, or because you think that girl's hair is pretty.
It's totally out of pleasure.
Yeah, it definitely is.
That chick's a smoke show.
These kids have crazy hormones going on. They're all about those monkey instincts. They want that pleasure. They want that good stuff. And that's all they want.
That's amazing. It's true. And
it is.
It's amazing that some people get past that. I just mean, like, there's people that we went to high school with who are still together. They've been together for 15 years or 10 years. That is madness.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I can't even take care of myself.
That's awesome.
Let alone take care of another person for that long.
Man, I have trouble like being around a person for too long. I get to the point where I'm just like, I just want to be alone for a little bit. I'm gonna go to the woods, kind of like hang out. So to be with a person for that long is amazing. It's impressive that you've gotten to a point in your relationship where you can like talk things out. Because I'm assuming those kind of relationships aren't those toxic, terrible relationships, and if they are, I'm sorry that you've had to deal with that for so long. But when you get to that stage, those relationships always come across as more mature. They talk about things. They work on things together. They support each other. So those are those healthy, like pushing you forwards kind of relationships that you want. Not just about the physical attraction and whatever else there is in that situation, but it's those those relationships you want to help you grow as a person.
Jimmy, I have a question for you. When you were
Yeah.
when you were in high school, did you have any
Hmm.
romantic relationships that weren't based on a physical attraction?
No.
No, I didn't either. I just want to know, do you think that's common? Do you think there's usually more, like, is there more of an emotional attraction when you're that age? Or do you think it develops from the physical attraction?
Not all my relationships were purely physical. I mean, there's always like some kind of emotional connection, or like at least there was something that we like connected over. Like, hey, we both like this thing, or whatever, or we both have the same friends, or whatever it was. So I think every relationship has to start out with physical. I mean, romantic relationships. To be like attracted to somebody is a very large part of a romantic relationship, because you're not going to want to touch somebody that you're not attracted to.
No,
So I think,
and the sexual encounters in a romantic relationship are an important part of any romantic relationship.
yeah, that's a very large part of why a lot of relationships break down. The physical, the physical part of the relationship stops working.
10 years down the road, the kids leave the house, and all of a sudden, daddy doesn't want mommy.
I think I think if once you break down the physical, it definitely starts to affect the emotional. You're not feeling that you're wanted or needed for these different things, and you're feeling that that person is being satisfied in that way by maybe another person, or somehow or another, because you feel that that person still needs that, but they're not getting it from you anymore. So there's something going on.
Yeah, and that's when it comes down to, you have to care about the other person's needs and wants, and you also have to acknowledge the fact that different people receive love in different ways. And
Mm-hmm.
if time goes on and you're not nurturing and caring for that relationship, it will fall apart. And the longer you neglect it, the harder it's going to get, right? You see it happen all the time, and I feel like it's happening more and more as time goes on. People are just losing sight of what a relationship is about. I think most people find it just like a security thing and a comfort blanket, and it really should be about a lot more than that.
Yeah, it shouldn't just be like, hey, we're together, so we're safe. It should be like, hey, we're together, let's go do something that we don't find safe, so that we can push these things forward. And you were just talking about like the ways of expressing your love for people.
Yeah.
I'd remembered there was this list of different types and ways that people like to give and receive affection. And usually the way that you like to give affection is the way that you feel you would like to receive affection. So there's, for some people, they like to do acts of service. So they'll like go get something for you or do things for you. I think that's one of those things that I think I like to do, is like, hey, I'll do this thing for you, I'll do that for you, whatever. Then there's words of affirmation, where you just tell people like all these different things. Use your words a lot. It doesn't necessarily it's not necessarily your actions, but your words. And you feel that when you say these things, you only say them because you mean them. And these, like, when you're not the kind of person that takes these different kinds of love, and you have a partner that is different from you in those aspects, sometimes it can get difficult, where you're a person that uses your words, they're a person that uses quality time, for example. So they just want you to be around. They just want to sit next to you, kind of thing, or do activities with you, and they don't necessarily say these things. So those can be like difficult parts in a relationship, but they're an important part to talk about as well. So yeah, there's quality time as the third one, receiving gifts as the fourth one, so giving people things, and then the fifth one's physical touch. They're all just different ways of giving and receiving love, and that again goes back to your basic childhood, where you understand how your parents gave you love. If they just spoiled you with toys or physical touch, like would rub your back or give you words of affirmation, quality time, those different kinds of things. So it's one of those really important parts of a romantic relationship that I think a lot of people overlook, is just how you expect to be loved and how the other person expects to receive your love, because that's a part that can break down really quickly.
Yeah, that you nailed that on the head, Jimmy. Like 100%.
Thank you.
There is most people have a primary way of receiving love and a secondary way of receiving love. So it's usually not just one, but two of those different categories that you kind of place them under. So you said you like acts of service. You said you like doing things for people,
Yeah.
or for, I guess, specifically, like that's, I guess one way you would receive love. That's one way you like to
Yeah.
give love.
I mean, that's one of those things that I just like to do all the time. I just like to try and, if somebody needs something, somebody needs help, I'm going to do that kind of thing. Like, that's what I want to do.
Totally. And as we said, this is relationships in general. And when we say love, like it's not just romantic relationships. Love comes in all shapes, sizes, forms, and comes, you'll come across it with different people. Like, I love Jimmy. Been my brother for years and years and years. And, he's always been there for me. And so there's a certain level of brotherhood and camaraderie and love that we share. And that's cool. And so, you just have to notice that. So watch people, because like we said, people will give love in the way that they want to receive love. So if somebody is constantly doing things for you, then that means then try doing something for them, and you'll probably notice that they are super grateful for the service, because that's what I've done. And I've watched my significant other. I've watched how the things she does and how she acts and how she sends me love, and I've recognized it. And I know that, she's a big one for quality time. She just wants to spend time together, because sometimes, we go a few weeks without seeing each other because we both work so much. And I know that she just loves that quality time, and I know she appreciates it so much. So, and I'm the type of person that I like the quality time, but that's not how I receive love. And so sometimes when there's a night where, we both have off and she's like, "Oh, do you want to come over? Do you want to hang out?" Sometimes I really want to say, "No, I don't," because I just kind of need my time to myself, especially because I'm, like I try to be as creative as possible, as often as possible. So when I have that time, sometimes I kind of have to be introverted and I have to spend that time and kind of focus on myself. But I recognize that this is what she needs. And that's the point where I'm like, okay, no, I can do that. I can take this night and I can do this for you, because I know that you're going to appreciate it so much. And that by giving her that form of love, I'm going to receive that love back. So, and like for me, a big one is physical touch, and not just in a romantic way, but just the small things like shoulder rubs, or if we're sitting there watching a movie and she's just playing with my hand or whatever, like weird things like that. I really like that. Helps me feel a connection emotionally through the physical form. So, it's just to recognize those things. Everybody's different, but it's important to recognize them. And because it'll help you. It's kind of a psychological thing, right? If you can learn to analyze people a little bit and read their body language, it'll really help you in all aspects of life, not just your romantic ones. We've been talking about relationships and different forms of relationships, and I want to talk about the most important kind that we have probably talked about many times in the past, but we haven't addressed it today, is the relationship with yourself. It's the most important relationship. You will never have a healthy relationship. I shouldn't say that. You'll have more healthy relationships if you have a healthy relationship with yourself.
I agree completely.
If you can learn to have a sense of self and know who the self is and care for yourself and nurture for yourself, then you will be able to care and nurture for other people. And when you know who you are and you know what your purpose is in this world, and you can find a way to move forward and just have an understanding of the world around you, then you will be able to capitalize on those relationships and make the most of them, and it'll just
Yeah.
make all the difference in the world.
That comes into like listening to yourself. One of the biggest part of any relationship is listening. You have to be aware of like the other person, how they're feeling, what they want to express to you, those kind of things. And that's equally important for yourself. You need to understand where you are in life, what you need out of life, and where you want to go in life. And to do that, you have to listen to yourself. You need to listen to what makes you uncomfortable, what's a little bit too comfortable, and those different things. I actually had a professor one day tell us that every relationship that you're in, he says it's a type of manipulation. You always want to, in a way, manipulate a person to do a thing for you or whatever it is. So when it comes to these different types of love, our way of like manipulating that person, and manipulation,
It sounds like such a bad word. It comes with a bad connotation, but it's not. I mean, it can be, but not all the time.
it can be really bad. But no, manipulation isn't necessarily bad, because without manipulation, nothing would ever get done. In that, asking a person to do something for you is manipulating their will in a way to do that thing. So you have to listen to yourself and then manipulate your own actions to do whatever it needs to be done to get to where you want to go. And you need to manipulate those people that are around you to help you out or do these different things. That's a big part of those types of affection. You give these people the type of affection that you want, because in your head you think, okay, if I'm doing this for them, they'll understand this is what I want, kind of thing. So it's a big piece, I think.
I totally agree with you. When it comes to being in the studio, we always have a way of manipulating people, and it's the same idea. It's not always for the bad, but it's you tell them a certain thing to get them to play a
Mm-hmm.
certain way because they're not doing this necessarily right. And it's not that I'm trying to manipulate them to get them to do some evil thing or break the law in any way.
Yeah, or like go against their will or whatever.
As a producer, you try and get people to perform the best they can. And sometimes you have to trick them a little bit, manipulate them in a certain way. So, and you're not doing it for the negative reasons, you're doing it for
Yeah.
the best of the project.
The same with my job with the youth. None of these, like a lot of these kids, they don't want to go out and go to school or do different things. So you have to kind of manipulate them in a way to do different things. We've talked about how I'll bring my PlayStation in so I can get them to go do some physical activity, get a bunch of extra chores done, do something that like pushes them forwards, just so that they can use this PlayStation for a couple hours. I'm manipulating these people, but I'm doing it for their own benefit and positive, like in a positive way.
And little do they know.
So I really wanted to talk about polyamory for these relationship topics. We're into these romantic relationships, and I just wanted to touch on the idea of polyamory because I think it's something super fascinating, super interesting.
For the people that don't know, Jimmy, tell them what polyamory is.
So polyamory is the idea that it's different than monogamy, basically the opposite. You can have a partner or not and have like multiple other partners as well. So some people do it in a way where they have a primary partner. So like they have a girlfriend or boyfriend, and this person is the person that they spend their life with. But at the same time, they agree that they can go and have emotional and physical connections with other people. So that kind of relationship, you need to have a lot of self-awareness as well as communication with yourself and your partner or multiple different partners. So these can end up being like just like a group of people that are all kind of intermingled in the relationship, or it can be these you go out on like dates, you meet new people, you go do these fun activities, and some of these things can become sexual, some of them may not, but you're not necessarily a monogamous duo in the sense that you only stay together.
So my question is,
Yes.
To be in polyamory or to partake in
Mm-hmm.
it, does
Mm-hmm.
the other person have to know?
Yes.
So it has to be
Completely.
an open relationship.
Yeah, basically.
You can't be committing adultery
Mm-mm. No. Then it's not a polyamorous relationship. It's just that's a monogamous it's a in air quotes monogamous relationship.
on one half.
Yeah, by on one half basically, but it comes down to like you have to um, set the tone for the relationship. You have to agree upon these things. I always think like at the beginning of a relationship is the only time that this can really be implemented, unless you're at a point where you can both talk about these things without somebody getting emotionally like upset about it, which is really hard for a lot of them relationships to get to that point. To be at the point where you and your partner can go out and do things they don't necessarily have to, but it has to be agreed upon. And there's got to be different. There's got to be a lot of communication, and that maybe this person would rather you go out, do these dates, and not tell them about anything about it, but they just want to know like when you're going out to do these things. Or maybe they want to basically vet the people beforehand. They want to see like they want to meet them, they want to talk to them, that kind of thing. Or you both go out and do a date separately and then do your thing and then meet the next day or whatever it is.
Swingers.
Yeah. Um, so I think it's just a really like just a really cool idea that that's a way that people live. That's not necessarily something that I'm into or that I would be able to do, but I think it's a really cool, different part of society that people should know is there. People should be aware that you don't have to always be stuck in this relationship. You're not always a cheater if you're seeing other people, but it has to be a mutually agreed upon thing. That's the biggest part of polyamory is communication, which
How common do you think it is in this day and age?
oh, I don't know. I mean, I could see it being a lot more common now because there's like if it's agreed upon thing and you're not necessarily just like throwing it out there telling everybody like, hey, we're polyamorous. Some people might not. But I think it's a lot easier because there's like online dating, so you can just go on there and be like, okay, we're gonna meet here, and then you go meet for this date. And in a bigger city, you're not necessarily gonna see a whole bunch of people kind of thing. So I think it's probably a lot more popular than it would have been like 10, 15, 20 years ago, where there was a huge social stigma on that kind of thing.
Well, I think there still is.
Yeah. Oh, I think there definitely is. But I think there's like less of a stigma because everybody's like, well, you're not hurting anybody if this is an agreed upon thing. So you do you. In my own personal opinion, I feel like that's one of the biggest things that people are heading towards is like, yeah, as long as you're not hurting other people, you can do whatever. That's my belief. And I'm hoping that it's kind of getting out there and becoming more prevalent.
I think a big part of it is having that sense of self that we talked
Yeah.
about and putting the ego away so that you can be supportive of another person who wants to show your partner love.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's like children. Children, you know, think of like the 8-year-old who has her little 6-year-old sister, and she loves her sister. She loves to play with her. She likes spending time with her.
Mm-hmm.
But all of a sudden, her sister gets a toy that she wanted, and now she's upset
Mm-hmm.
because her sister is happy.
Yeah.
It's so backwards because if I saw somebody giving my partner love and it created happiness in my partner's life, why would I be upset at that other person? If you truly care about that person and just want what's best for them and want them to be happy. But that's where when it comes down to is usually nowadays it's like, well, no, you get to be happy with me.
Yeah. You only get to be happy together.
And that's, I think, because people have that insecurity and that lost sense of self. Whereas if you can look at it from an outside perspective and be like, just like, that guy makes you happy, cool. Like, I'm happy that you're happy.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you can just open yourself up to those possibilities, imagine the peace that would come out in the world.
Yeah.
People wouldn't be fighting so much.
Yeah. Coming back to that, like types of showing affection as well. Maybe you two have a certain way of being together. You love each other in this certain way, and that's all well and fine. It's perfect. But then you meet this other person that they have a different kind of connection with you. I think that's also important. Having different types of connections with people is really awesome. You can be great friends with a person, or you can be great friends and have great sex, or whatever it is. And it's great to have different types of things in your life, different experiences, different thoughts, different ideas, different people around. So I think the polyamorous idea is just that they're not getting like caught up on, well, this is the way we do things. Every week we're going to have a date night. We're going to go to the movies and have dinner. And then we're also going to stay at home and watch Netflix these other days. And whatever it is, go out and do these different adventures. But we're only going to do these things like each week. So it kind of like, it's like spicing up life where, yeah, let's do that thing. We'll make sure we have a day where we go and do something that we both enjoy. We both have a great time and we spend a good quality time together and whatever affection you need kind of thing. But I'm also going to go and do these other things that I like to do with these other people. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I think I always had the idea that you have to have your world formed before you can combine your life with another person.
Yeah.
You have to know what you want in your life, and you have to have that foundation built before you combine your life and commit your life with another person. Because I've seen when young relationships move in together super early, and then they a lot of the times they start living their lives for that other person. And then as you start to live your life for that other person, you lose that sense of self.
Yeah.
And then you become bitter, you start resenting the other person.
I mean, and then you also become a different person. You're not the person that person fell in love with in the first place. So you're not necessarily going to be somebody that they want to be around all the time. It changes the dynamic of the relationship when you're no longer living for yourself, you're not doing things for yourself, you're not hanging out with the same friends because you're always with this person, so you're hanging out with their friends and doing what they want to do. You become a different person. And that can be a very big change in a relationship. You think, oh, they want me around all the time, so I'll be with them all the time. But you're not developing yourself. You're not being who you are anymore.
Jimmy, wouldn't it be so cool if we saw Bob, man? Bob's never around because he's always hanging out with that new girl.
Right? Yeah. Then it doesn't not just change the dynamic of the relationship that you're in, but it changes all the other relationships that you're in. Exactly.
Go hang out with other people.
Yeah.
Not just one person.
Go make
There's
some
so
friends.
many people in the world. Make some friends. Make some healthy relationships. Make sure that your relationship with yourself comes number one, because it is ultimately the most important relationship. Make sure you have a relationship with God, whatever your God is. I'm not saying it's any specific God, but there is, even if your God is yourself, make sure you have a sense of self. Make sure you work on that. You know, make sure it's concrete. Go try new things. Take that time out and recognize the love in the world. It's ultimately what we're here to do. We're here to love. We're here to have a good time. We're here to live happy lives.
Do we have a challenge for them this week?
Ooh, that's a good one. A challenge. I challenge everybody to call an old friend or write a letter. Write a letter to an old friend that you haven't communicated with in a while, or an old mentor or a distant relative that maybe you haven't communicated with. Find a form of communication and just show somebody that you care and somebody that you haven't talked to in a while.
Yeah, I like that.
Write them a little letter. You know, if you do so, share that experience with us and we will talk about it another week. We will tell and share the stories with everyone else.
And I mean, we're not experts, but if you have any questions or if you just want to tell us stories about different relationships you have, go ahead, send us stuff in, rootsoflifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can tweet us on Twitter at rootsoflifepod, direct message even. So
communicate with us. We want to hear from you. I want to give a shout out to our friend Paul, who sent in an email in regards to
episode 8,
the exercise challenge. So he did take it upon himself to try and commit to a certain amount of steps each day. And then as time goes on, he is going to try and increase those steps
each week.
Paul. Yeah, so Paul is an educator. He gets stuck up in a classroom, and so he is taking the initiative in optimizing his physical health and trying to just be a little bit more diligent about it, which is all we ask of all of you. Try a little bit harder, make the world a better place, even if it's just your world.
Exactly.
Because your world is your reality. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We're so grateful you're listening to this. We thank you, everybody, for listening to the Roots of Life podcast, episode 12. Taylor and Jimmy will be back next week with another episode for your audio entertainment. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.